Hey, hi everybody. Hi Zoom people. Hopefully you can hear us fine. Looks like we have two Zoom people. I'm Sarah from nofamass, and I think if everybody wants to come into the circle, you can. Welcome. I'm sure that you've probably been in other workshops before, so you've gotten the intro already. Just wanted to acknowledge the land that we're on, that has been stewarded by Indigenous people since well before European colonization. And if you would like to learn whose land you occupy, where you live, you can go to the nativeland.ca website. These are some wonderful organizations around the Northeast who are working on racial equity and building equity in our communities and in the food system. Highly encourage you to engage with them wherever you are. The caucus groups just happened. I hope that some of you were able to join them and that it was a good experience. Thanks to some sponsors. And just wanted to highlight, sorry, the Zoom thing is over.
Why is something special sponsor list?
What do you say? They're a partner level sponsor. Not sure exactly what that means. I think they just gave more money than other sponsors. And NOFA's hiring for a few positions right now. If you're interested, you can go to nofamass.org/jobs. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Paul Feenan. And let's see if I remember your intro. We used to be coworkers, Northeast commercial grower rep at Mowing Organic Seeds.
And Wisconsin.
And Wisconsin, and parts of Canada.
No, not Canada anymore. So New England, Wisconsin, Michigan, and New York.
Beautiful.
Good chunk.
I'm gonna share your thing now. And Zoom folks, if you have any trouble hearing, just put something in the chat and let us know.
And will you see that? Or am I gonna be there?
I'll just have to check it maybe when you
Do you want to stand there or do you want to go sit down?
I'll sit down.
Yeah, you be part of the conversation.
Yeah. I just don't know entirely where to put the here. Let me at least reduce the Zoom people to one video. There you go. Now it's a smaller box. Okay, how about it?
Okay, good afternoon. My name's Paul, and I work for Mowing Seeds. And this is not Mowing Seeds. I might have blown it earlier and told a few people who these were, but if you didn't hear me give it out, I want you to, anybody even in the Zoom. So I think the people in the Zoom can just unmute and say that, you know, if you're having technical problems or you can't hear, or if you have something to add to the conversation, this is going to be sort of an open forum conversation. So does anybody, so I've started all of my lectures for years and years and years with this picture because I think we got somebody who might know, you know who this is? Okay. Well, so I've started every lecture that I've given, not every, but many lectures that I've given over the years in high school and in a college setting and in a youth development setting with this picture. Does anybody know who this is? Yeah. And recently, nobody has known who this is. This is, I'm giving a dramatic pause in case somebody from the Zoom might know who it is. Well, you don't even know who it is because what I said was it was the Grateful Dead, but it is not the Grateful Dead. It is the Grateful Dead's road crew. Those are the roadies for the Grateful Dead for all through all of the years. And the gentleman, loose term in this particular case, is a gentleman named Steve Parrish. And the reason why I use this picture is because Steve Parrish explained how they did it, how they toured the nation for however many years and broke that setup down and took it to the next city and put it back up. And like, it was crazy. It was like the biggest, road show in the history of rock and roll at the time. And someone asked him how they did it. And and then the follow-up question was, who's the boss? Who was the boss? And he said, famously, it's not that famous because you guys don't even know who he is, but he said the situation was the boss. Jerry wasn't the boss. I wasn't the boss. The Bill Graham, who owned the concert venue, wasn't the boss. The situation was the boss. And the reason I like that is because in teaching for years and years and years, I don't really want to be the boss of the room. I want the situation to be the boss. And I'm really comfortable with losing total control. So next slide. So in keeping with that, this is not really a presentation. So this is meant to be an open forum discussion, and it's going to be messy and sloppy. And if it gets so messy and sloppy that the wheels start to come off or the brakes get locked and we can't move through, then I'll jump in and sort of grease the skids and move this thing forward. For a few years at High Mowing, and we're an organic seed company. For a few years at High Mowing, we've been really focused on, and Sarah was a big part of this, our host today, was this idea of sort of lifting the veil on the seed industry. And I think that we started talking and thinking about that because as quote unquote experts in the field, however much any of us or all of us were, it was clear to us that before we started really talking and thinking about seeds and seed procurement and seed breeding and seed production and seed quality control and seed distribution, and we realized that even though many of us were growers for many years, we didn't know anything about it. Like I was flabbergasted when I went to High Mowing at how little I knew about the seed industry, because I just ordered the seeds and the seeds were supposed to come, and if they were on back order, I was calling whoever at the seed company to be like, when's my seeds going to get here? And then I got a job and I did that for years. And like at the time, I considered myself somewhat of an expert in the varieties that worked in my system and even might work in other people. I was teaching other people how to grow vegetables. I was teaching young people. I was, consulting, but I didn't really know very much at all about the seed industry. So it became clear to us that, and then I'll be honest with you, I'll tell you a little dirty secret. It's really clear from having conversations with you all on the phone that you don't know anything either. Like, and I mean that in jest a little bit, but when we talk to our customers, it's clear that there's a gap there in like the understanding of why this seed is available or not available, why it's performing or not performing, why it went away. That's a big one. Like, why did this variety go away? And so it's clear that in order to be moving this ball forward a little bit, down the field, we all need to become a little bit more educated. And I believe that the best way to get educated is to be communicating together. I think there really needs to be it's essential that there's a feedback loop. So I'm a representative of High Mowing to commercial growers in all the states that I listed. But I kind of view it as like 50-50 at any given time. I'm either representing the company to you all, or I'm representing you all to the company and your needs and desires as customers and as the growers of these seeds, these vegetables and herbs and cover crops and such. So I really believe that that in order for the industry to advance past where it has, and let's be really clear, the organic seed industry has advanced in an incredibly fast pace when you really think about it. The high mowing is about 30 years old. And before high mowing was around, I'm sure people were saving and growing and even probably sharing and distributing in somewhat of a commerce setting organic seeds, but it was not like real. It wasn't like, it didn't have a ton of tangible agricultural economic viability. And I'm not saying high mowing is 100% responsible for where we are now, but high mowing and some of the other seed companies and all the breeders and vendors that kind of came along, that have decided to come along for the ride, certainly have moved the organic seed industry in leaps and bounds. I mean, the concept of having hybrid seeds even 15 years ago in the organic seed market was controversial. First of all, like, not only was it not like something that was happening, like the seed companies who were responsible for growing and distributing these seeds weren't sure that they wanted to be in that game. So here we are, and we have a viable catalog, and we have colleagues and competitors, and they're really the same people. We're all pulling on the same rope together. So if the Johnny's rep were in here, first of all, I'd be happy because I wanted her to be part of this conversation. But I would say it anyway, like we're all pulling on the same rope. You know, yes, you know, it's my job to sell high mowing seeds, but the reality is it's my job to represent you all and make sure that you have the best tools at your disposal. And in this case, you know, the best seeds. Yes.
So, there probably are some things they don't know of the seed industry, but I consider myself to be one of the people that knows more about the seed industry in a lot of groups I'm a part of, but have not the company seed saving group because that's a group where a lot of people don't sitting on seeds, like I consider myself to know a significant amount about seeds compared to a lot of the groups I've been a part of.
Yeah. Well, so that's what this forum is for. So, and remind me of your name. We've talked. Yeah, we talked a couple of years ago at this conference when we were out in the tomato field. Remember the tomato? Yeah. So we're gonna have that conversation. That's what this is for.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that point now. So the goal of, so I've spent the last couple of years with Sarah's help initially, and then with my teammates' help, and the organization and the company's support, sort of lifting the veil on the seed industry. And it's clear to me that we've got some information to share, and I'm going to continue to share that information at different conferences. But I also know from my educational background that it can only go so far before we need some emergent information to come back to the company. So this feedback loop is really important. So that's what this conversation is for. And I'll take just a few more minutes before I open it up to conversation. And I've got some prompts for us. And we'll share that hopefully so that actually, can you try to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Can you try to pull that Word doc up so that the Zoom folks can see it?
Mm-hmm.
I have experienced what's called a fishbowl learning environment. Maybe some people, anybody experienced that before? Okay.
I know what that means.
Yeah. So the idea of a fishbowl is that it kind of starts out as like an expert panel, and those people are in the fishbowl, and then as the conversation evolves and continues to progress, people move in and out of the fishbowl. Now, the fishbowl in its super like messy, sloppy. So the situation is the boss in that conversation. But a ton of information can come out, And if people are hot with the note taking, they can take a lot away from it. And they don't have to participate, but they can, which is different than me standing up like Charlie Brown's teacher and womp at you, which I've done. But a fishbowl only works, it works best when the numbers are so large that it's hard to get other people involved in a panelist kind of conversation. So we're going to kind of go, instead of a fishbowl today, I just wanted you to hear that that's what I'm thinking about. And you can research that on your own if you're ever in these scenarios and you want to learn about, you want to utilize it. But otherwise, I'm going to do what's kind of lead a kind of a farmer to farmer or grower to grower conversation where I step out of the teacher role and into the facilitation role. I start with some prompts and we all talk a little bit. So that's where we're going to go next. So the first prompt I have is we're going to start with the second bullet. So the question is, how do you, in your growing space, your operation, let's call it, no matter how big or small it is, how do you go about bringing on new varieties? And the second part of the question is there a process that has worked well for you or one you think might work well? And I'm going to set some ground rules up, which is some people are going to really step into this gap really easily. And that's great. I clearly have that gift of gab. But I also am going to ask everybody to kind of make sure that other people have a chance to talk. And then sometimes I'm going to be directorial and I'm going to I'm not going to cut anybody off, but I'm gonna try to draw it out of somebody else. But who's got something to add to add to that? And I'm going to do my best of just jotting down notes. How do you bring on new varieties?
Well, there are some categories within my garden that I don't have something that I'm already growing. To fill that role. So I go to the garden center and read the seed package and find the one that seems the best, and then they add at the store. Or I bought seeds from Mowing at the garden center and now garden supply. Because they were the ones that the store is carrying that carried genetic 0-3 beet seeds.
Okay, so filling gaps through just initial research and then sounds like trial and error. Yeah.
The garden work with the trial and error. I bought some of the seeds this year, corn.
Okay.
And I was surprised. I got like a 90+ germination rate. But other seeds like beets and different companies, and germination rate is pretty small. So I experiment with the various ones, and then as I go along the after that, I say okay, I'm luck on this one. So experimenting by put the actual thing in the ground.
Follow-up question to both of you then, and to the group based on those things. Based on what? Like trial and error, do you have like a favorite corn or do you have a favorite beet that you're experimenting against?
I planted corn in the past, and germination rate is pretty low, down by maybe 50-60%. And I hope bees are try different ones. For whatever reason, I don't know.
Yeah, so you're looking for improvements on past performance.
Yes.
I sometimes spend a lot of time in the winter thinking about what would be ideal for all the things that would be ideal for a crop to have, and then I see what, and I read the catalog and see what's likely to fill that.
Okay.
I stay in together.
Anybody else?
You know, I'm gonna throw something a little different
Yeah.
in that. One of the things that we consider in our gardens is what is culturally appropriate. What do people traditionally eat at home, or what they grew up with, what reminds them of home? And it can't be grown here in this region, because there are certain foods, like I know things that I grew up with that may not grow well here. But the second phase of that, going back to what the gentleman said about trial and error, okay, say if it's a gandules, is there a variety of gandules that can be grown here, or a variety of ají dulce, that's a pepper, that can be grown here, that's only grown in a warmer part of the country. These are foods that are cultural, there's histories with the food, histories that families have with the food, so it's, the science is a secondary thing, but it's what, you know, what are people used to eating? What is a part of their
It's cultural.
culture, part of their house?
It's cultural, it's dinner table stuff.
Yes, it's
And,
different.
and chopping block stuff,
Yeah,
yeah,
Another is just this, different of the same thing. For example, this year I got more golden beet seed because the comment from the other half of the preparer food said that the regular beets are really too red and staining. So it's one just a moment of like, okay, I love beets. You know, I'm gonna try something a little different that satisfies a concern about a particular variety, which, you know, makes it so that I look for it, go to the Hadley Garden Center and get the high mowing seeds.
more. That's the
If
more.
I had to look for it.
Yeah, but it's, yeah, so I'm boiling your down into more of the same, but a little bit like more
Yeah.
plus.
It could be different in germination. It could
Right,
be different in the same variety. It could be, you know, different in yield. It could, you know, but yeah, the different of what I've been doing.
anybody else? Yep,
I feel like apples and fruit in general, like perennial fruit especially, feel like something that, yeah, it feels just like more and more necessary to develop organically. And I think a big part of that is climate change adaptation, which has been always on my mind now. The increase of storms and like disease, pest pressure coming up from the south, et cetera. That feels like a major focus for me, and like honing in on varieties and seeds. You know, as far as like, there are certain things that if you lose a crop of radishes, it's not necessarily a big deal, you have another crop coming in. That I'm less concerned about, I guess, but yeah, but especially those like long game crops, tomatoes too. Yeah, but I mean, for like climate change adaptation and science. That's a major.
so you're looking for improvements based on new circumstances, but you're also looking for diversity.
And future circumstances, like trying to anticipate
Yeah.
what's gonna change and what's gonna hold up the best to that change.
I want to go back to the cultural piece. Are you looking for close enough? Is that because it sounded to me like you couldn't get what you're really looking for because of some factor, environmental, maybe the seeds are just too far away, maybe you can't import them, maybe you can't,
it's a couple of factors. I think for the gardens we work with is can it grow here, knowing that it may be coming from a different climate. So, you know, I'll go back to ají dulce because it is a seed or a crop that you find mostly like Florida, the Caribbean. Can it grow here in Massachusetts? And so if there's a variety, and there is a variety because we grow it now, right along with that blue, we grow this now. But are those varieties adaptable? Have they been adapted where they can tolerate the change in climate up here, the longer winters, the fact that we have a shorter summer? So those are things that we are looking for when we start planning the garden, because we ask the families, well, what would you like in it? What do you eat? And a lot of those crops, they could be we have families from Nigeria, families from the Caribbean, families from Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, from the South, you know, talking Georgia, Louisiana. And they want to see the foods in the gardens that they grew up with. So then the next question is, oh, can it grow here? Like even some of the fruits. ask you what kind of fruit, they'll say papaya. I'm like, can't grow here in Massachusetts yet. I don't know if there's a variety that does. It might be, so those are the
Maybe
things.
something.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we're doing the same thing at Mowing, right? So and where my mind was wandering to like the whole chicory bitters place right now, where we're searching kind of far and wide, well, Italy, right? For these varieties that are a little bit more improved. Bejo Seeds, which is a really important partner of ours, European seed company, research station out in Geneva. They've developed some really nice tried and true workhorse radicchios that we've grown and been able to market really reliably. For most people, they're good enough. They're great, but they're not necessarily exactly what customers might be looking for, and especially with the increase in demand for these particular crops, they're not exactly. Asian greens is another one where we're kind of chasing history a little bit, trying to bring these in. Do they work here? Are they marketable? Can we, and then can we get a steady supply of seed production? Because it's great if we can get a good, packet of the pepper, but if we can't produce the seed, then we're kind of back to where we started.
I have to say about that, like, I think there's such beautiful experimentation that comes out of people who are far away from their homeland. Because sometimes I've seen people not even realize that, they're not used to the growing season here, they're newer to this region, and they're just planting the stuff that they know. And sometimes I've been shocked, like, you grew what here?
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
And because I am really for as much as I've spent time in these worlds, I'm really resistant to change. I have my tried and true growing. Maybe I'll add one new one, but I'll convince myself beforehand that something's not going to work. And then somebody who's just trying to grow the food that they love, ends up with a surprise or something that.
well, if you don't convince yourself, somebody like me or somebody else they'll hammer you
Right.
and commit and convince you that way too.
Uh-huh.
And we had those experiences with those crops that may be difficult to grow, but in the garden it's thriving. And we've had families that will bring, we have one woman, she is from Nigeria, she brings us her peppers. And we try them out in the garden and they thrive. And these are peppers that she brought with her from Nigeria. We've had those kinds of surprises.
There's somebody who planted Korean celery and polio. And it not only survived polio conditions, it was productive the entire year except for the week of the gigantic snowfall, for the week of negative 20 degrees. Otherwise, it just kept producing all throughout the winters. And that was when we got buried in snow. Next week it poked through the snow. When I got knocked back by negative 20, the next week it came back. So it was like, it's perennial, and I actually would like more of it. But I don't know if that was a special strain of Korean celery, or whether that's how Korean celery works, and people just didn't know it.
The native earlier, it was like a native plant for insect habitat. And the gentleman who was doing that presentation kept talking about provenance. The concept of provenance, and which is, he was likening it to like art trade, and that, one of the ways that they is, am I using the right word? Provenance, I think I am, which is like this idea of tracking something all the way back and keeping track of a good note taking, and so on and so forth. And that's one thing that the horticulture industry is absolutely horrific at, really bad. And because we're generally speaking not driven. There's no commerce in that. The commerce is in selling more. like, even in the native plant industry, it's like, I wanna propagate as many as I can, and I'm not gonna keep track of which watershed I took the cuttings from. But turns out now we're learning more and more and more about that was important. We should have probably kept track of that, but now we don't know. So the kind of, like, when you said Korean celery, but you don't know, like, where do I get it? Where did it come from?
The price that I got it from actually talking plants and sells them, so I could go back to
Right.
and buy more.
Last call on this topic. We didn't get as deep as I wanted to. I'm not trying to be critical. No, I'm not. I'm learning how to do this again. Because what I really wanted to dig into is not how you started this project, not how you started it, but how you ended it. Like, how did you go from that carrot that you've grown forever and ever and ever for whatever reason to a new carrot? Because, and like, so, but that last call on that topic. Price.
I mean, you go to, a seed rack and you have the varieties that are close to what you want. And, and it's more expensive for organic in the current year. And that, particular seed has stability, you buy it cheap. So price is also a bottom line.
Yeah. So you moved us into another topic, which is, and again, I'm from an organic seed company, so I'm dichotomizing this issue purposefully. Because that's really the organic conference. And so here's the question that sort of goes in line with what you started, which is, good. Let's see, where is it? What are the conventional varieties that you cannot see your crop plan working without? Why? This question was really for commercial growers, but that doesn't mean you can't answer it. But it really is for commercial growers. I'm like, here, I'm going to give everybody an example, and maybe I'll steal yours. But if I were to call 100 of my customers that were diversified veg growers in the Northeast, some majority of them, it could be a landslide majority, would say Bolero carrot. Like, I grow Bolero carrot because it's the best carrot. It stores well, it comes out of the ground fresh, and I can sell it, I can eat it. It has really good tops, I can mechanically harvest it. I blah 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 blah. They'd have like 25 reasons why they're not going to buy my carrot.
What's Bolero?
It's a hybrid carrot from Bejo, and it's just one that company, for better or for worse, has chosen not to breed organically. I am pretty well convinced I can sell people carrots that compete with it very, very well, and in some cases better, but I can't convince them of that yet. And so that's what this conversation is about, this feedback loop piece, right? So what are those varieties? Nobody can say Bolero now, except to me.
Well, I used to have a super sweet corn that I used to get, and I could not get it organically for years. Now, I haven't tried again in a long time because I'm not there anymore. But, I loved it.
When you say conventional, do you mean something treated and that is needed, or do you just mean it wasn't grown organically?
That's the latter. So varieties, so you're allowed, and to be clear here, one is allowed to use conventionally produced seed that was not produced certified organic on an organic farm. There are some guidelines and some rules and some regulations around that. But it has been identified by the Organic Seed Alliance as one of the #1 reasons why the organic seed usage has not grown, because there are conventional varieties that people are grafted onto and cannot get off of. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I am stating the fact, I'm restating the fact that the reason that I'm gonna use my example, the reason that people don't grow Naval or Napoli or whatever other kind of carrot, is because they found the carrot they want and it's not organic. So, and I grew up Bolero, so I'm not casting aspersions here, but what I am trying to do is find out what are those varieties. Sweet corn's an excellent variety, an excellent example. And it doesn't have to be a variety, but it could be a class or a crop.
Right, the double G super sweet.
Sun gold tomatoes and hard fried turnips.
Some,
Sun gold.
oh, some gold. Yeah.
100.
I'll put mine on here. My favorite tomato.
Lysianthus.
Yep. Okay, so hybrid flowers generally, right? But sure, Lysianthus.
Are we just talking about hybrids here or seeds that weren't growing yet?
I said hybrid for the flower. I might have thrown us off or led us in an untoward way. Hybrid flower production is virtually 100% conventional at this point. So it doesn't have to be hybrids, though a lot of times the super sweet corn is an example of one. There are others. If we don't name the one I'm thinking of, I'll definitely name that one off too. But others, are there things that you just order every year that you cannot imagine not having in the crop plan?
In my community, we're having a lot of people like Papalo, Pizza. And so what they do is no one sells it, so what they do is they just go into the herb section at the food store. They buy it as a spice or herb, and that's what they plant.
What is it?
Papalo and Pizza. And like last year, we probably made money, but over half of our earnings came from just this bunch of herb that we saw at $1 a piece.
And so you're harvesting seed from the grocery store. How do you spell it?
Papalo.
And-
Pizza, PIPICHA.
Like I buy my organic potatoes from the store
Right.
and plant them and
Potato,
pay for the shipping for getting them here from anywhere else.
and potatoes will go back to your previous comment that's a price thing a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the organic sweet potatoes are very expensive.
Based on what, on what he said, I bought sweet potato a couple of years back, but I never put them before. So someone told me how to do it. I bought them at the store. And I just got the whole potato, about 3 of them. And they surprised me in the yield. But the potato end up being much sweeter than those that I bought in the store.
Wait, say it again. You got sweet potatoes from the store.
Yeah, I planted, and the yield was very good. But the potato that I planted is better than the.
Where did you get that stock?
Huh?
Where did you get the sweet potato stock that you planted?
From the store,
Okay, but you're saying the ones you grew were sweeter than the ones you bought.
yes,
Yeah, that makes sense.
no question about that.
Yeah, even though they were probably the same variety from the same, potentially from the same extent.
I've done that with garlic.
Yeah,
And again, it's more of a price situation rather than wait for the shipping. It's just
Mhm.
to the local store, that does sell organic garlic and just use that.
Right.
I had to sit and think from them, most of the things we're getting, like we used a lot of seeds this year, pajama seeds out of Maryland because, they're dealing with a lot of culturally appropriate crops.
Okay.
We got a very nice variety of seeds from them, but the garlic, yeah, I didn't run to the store, to the organic section.
Which I'm glad you brought up shipping, because one of the reasons I waited for the seed rack to come out was that out of the catalog, the shipping for what I wanted was more that I really wanted to pay.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if you put in seed bracket, so I could buy it.
Shipping's become a problem for all seed companies, and high mowing was late to raise their price on shipping, but boy, did we made up for being late. But to be fair, and now I'll put my rep hat on, high mowing, we're not even passing all of the cost on.
I know it is.
We're still taking it on the chin. So. Back to the conventional piece, so I'm gonna prod us there. Does anybody have anything else to offer that they might, yeah, and again, I knew this was gonna be, I sensed that this was a place where I wasn't gonna get the same type of answer if I had large commercial growers in the room. If I had asked that question of them, they would have said spinach, and that's because it's just an example. It's something we can all learn from, is this concept of downy mildew resistance. And we get a hold of something in the organic world that has probably been bred conventionally. We've convinced a breeder to either breed it and grow it out organically so we can sell it, or allow us to have the rights to it to contract out, and then we pay them a royalty. And then by the time we do all that, which goes back to the whole concept of how do we bring on new varieties, we go through years and years and years and lots of resources to bring on a new variety. And then if that variety is no longer novel, it doesn't work well against an evolving disease, in this case, downy mildew, then we have problems there too. Yeah, is there anything in the chat?
There's one.
Oh, what is it?
It just says thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now I'm gonna hit us, now that I've softened you up, I'm coming in for the punch.
I
You have a man on topic?
I do not usually order seeds every year because I have a strong seed supply in my home. I buy a lot of seeds when I do order them. But and then the cost, I go the same variety every year, a lot of my state seeds from. But one point I was growing the same varieties of beets every year, although I don't think it was a conventional variety because I made sure it was open pollinated and free before I bought it in the first place.
Mhm. And whether it was organic or conventional, it's hard to tell unless it was certified organic, but clearly,
Early winter tall top beets.
well, you can get that either way. We do sell that, and many companies sell that organically, but sometimes they buy a lot of that in
And then like
conventional as well.
red short top was the other one.
That one we don't sell.
But yeah, I think they both were. I got them both from Taiwan at one point, and then Fake at another point. So
Yep. I do that all the time, and so like Sun Gold tomato, or what was the Walla Walla, for the last couple of years, I've had to go search Walla Walla far and wide, and I've ended up with conventional seed, and then the next year you kind of forget about it. Now, I'm not bound by any rules or regulations because I'm not certified organic as a grower. I don't even really sell my produce, but I could easily see like where, you could slip into that. Well, I'll just go back to that and go back to that. So that leads to the next question. And this is sort of like, everybody's got to be a little vulnerable. Everybody's got to just, I really want to hear people's opinions about it, because my opinions have evolved and changed over the years about this a lot, which is, what's everybody's philosophy about using certified organics seeds in your operation? This is important. It's okay if your thoughts aren't fully formed. That's the point. We're hopefully learning here. And this might be the first time anybody's posed this question to you. I know I grew vegetables for a long time organically before someone posed that to me. And then even after that, I had all sorts of philosophies that sort of guided my decision-making and about it. And then, of course, I went to work for an organic seed company and that's continued to inform my philosophy. But what are people's philosophies? Yep,
How can you buy a seed and they say it's not organic? And you grow it, and then you take seed from it for the next year. Is it then organic for next
yes,
year?
if you were organic, and of course, there's a difference here between like the colloquial way of expressing organic and, you know, the certified organic, when nofamass or whoever the certifying agent comes in to a farm and says, these are the prohibited materials, these are the rules and regulations, that's big O, that's capital O organic. And so, but to answer your question directly, yes. And so the question is, if you're sourcing what's your philosophy on that? Like, what's your philosophy on whether to source your seeds organically or conventionally? Do people have strong opinions about it? Yeah.
Well, I work on a farm that sometimes, I'm a farmer on a farm that sometimes, well, that every year buys treated seeds and untreated seeds and transplants that are not, most of which are not organic transplants. Now, I have been pushing not for the farm to get organic seeds, but for the farm to at least is contact with a better seed company so they can get it, so they can buy good seeds that are not chemically treated. And the problem there is there are some bureaucratic obstacles that some people associated with the farm don't want to deal with. This change in seed contracts.
Mhm.
Don't know what those bureaucratic obstacles are, but
Above your pay grade.
that's what I've been told. And so I changed taxes and said, let's try raising some of our own seeds so that we don't need to buy the treated ones. And then that one hasn't caught very much attention yet.
Right.
Yeah. So, I do think that conventionally grown seeds are definitely way better than seeds that have been chemically treated or genetically engineered.
Okay, there's a strata here. You're saying it's okay. Yeah, okay, I get what you're
Let's say
saying.
like the GMO seeds are the worst because of permanent damage, and then the chemically treated seeds.
And you're not saying performance, you're saying from an environmental perspective.
From an environmental perspective, from organic perspective, the GMO are the worst. Then the chemically treated are still very bad, and I would consider either one of them to be unacceptable. And then the seeds that are clearly not chemically treated is because there's been some kind of guarantee there, but were conventionally grown, are sometimes good enough. I will sometimes use those in my own garden, and if somebody wanted me to plant those, I would definitely plant them. And then there are the seeds that, and then after that, I actually would rather get. After that, I'd rather get it more interesting varieties that do better than go for ones that are grown organically.
Okay, I like that. I like
But
that.
if I could get both of those, I would get that, you know?
Yep. Yeah, me too.
And I think that's a little bit maybe what Mr. Adams seemed to, or made me think of in terms of my philosophy, I feel like there's kind of two different categories in my mind. There's like the big varieties that are circulating that most of the larger seed companies carry, and within that, I'll always try to go for organic. But then there's the work that a lot of seed savers are doing, and a lot of smaller seed companies like Udama and True Love, who are not certified organic, and they're not really operating in the same industry, at the same industry level, but I super value what they're doing, and they have really interesting varieties, so
I love it.
I'd go for that.
You know, it just reminds me of, it's a funny aside. When I was teaching high school horticulture, we did this big project where the students were tasked with creating a taxa, creating their own taxa of plants. I said, you're all 200 years ago, and you're all the greatest minds, and your job is to create a classification system for plants. And the whole idea of the lesson was to talk about how some are informal and some are formal. There's really only one or two formal methods of doing classification, and then there's all these informal. And to prove that, you put 5 or 6 people in a group, and you do 10 groups, and they all come back with informal systems. None of them think to create a classification system based on plant morphology and families and this type of thing. They all come back. And there's this young man who was, his name was Kellen, and he was such a card and such a cut up in class all the time. And he said, there's only 2 kinds of plants, and there are plants I like and plants I don't like. That was it. That was his classification system. So then I put him to work on it, and he classified all his plants. I don't like them if they have prickers. I don't like them if they taste bad. I don't like them if they stink. And they were always reasons where you did and didn't like them. So it's kind of interesting because some of the stuff that you said, Sarah, was sort of formal, and some of it was a little informal. And growers are like that too. I had a grower who's a very, very close friend of mine early in my career at High Mowing say, Paul, you're going to want me to spend more money with you. And I just need you to know that I spend 1/3 of my money with you, and 1/3 of my money with Johnny's, and 1/3 of my money with Fedco, because I want all of you to succeed. And I'm not going to spend more than 1/3 of my money. If I spend more, you're going to get a little more, but you're only going to get 1/3 of that more. And I just thought that was cool, and I'm sure he was searching for organic varieties in Johnny's, but if he found a variety that he would like, didn't think he could work without, or that was a variety that he wanted to try, he was going to get that from Johnny's. It's so that was very informal. I mean, that's not a formal scientific way to make a decision. I'm going to make sure that other people don't have it.
I'm just gonna mention something going back to conventional varieties and white. It was ginger. It was one place in Hawaii, and then by midnight, and then they're sold out. So then what we do, we go to the organic grocery store and just get ginger. But we don't know what variety and whatnot. And then we try to save it. Or I don't even know how to save that ginger. So we just kind of do it somewhere. So it's not enough breeders of it, or not enough availability.
Yeah.
For me, it's always been viability. I mean, it's basically, if there's good conventional growers and there's bad conventional growers, there's good organic growers and bad conventional or organic growers as well. And there's this moment of where you want to get the offspring of a strong parent. And so basically, those strong parents sometimes are still within the conventional system. And I want to buy organic seed from strong parents. And that's why I continue to buy organic seed and have from the very beginning, because I want to create an industry that caters to that is organic and has the strength of providing viable seed that I can depend on.
And so that's why this conversation is important, and really drilling down on it over the next several years, because I think this conversation is going to be ongoing, because the key is to identify where those gaps are and what those gaps are, what are the things that people are looking for and not able to get in this particular place, so that we can try to fill that gap.
And find the organic company that I can depend upon for it. I mean, that's the bottom line as well too. I mean, I always love the opportunity, Turtle Island, some of these other ones that come along, to buy some of that, and take it home and give it a try, because they can be just like Tom Stearns.
Yeah.
In a little like lunch bag thing years from now, but because they had quality in mind, then I'll buy them, and I want them to succeed.
My new favorite place is Fruition, because I'm really trying to support Petra and Matt, because they're doing their best, and they're gonna have some hiccups, but their mission is true, and I think they have a chance to really grow like some of these other companies. So yeah, in the back, and then you
No, go ahead.
go ahead.
Okay, so. I actually don't like Johnny's on these, because they have such a small selection of varieties, all of which are the mainstream varieties that are not, they're very common anyways. And because Johnny's treats their seeds with stuff of, whether it be a pesticide or bacteria, I don't know. And the labels are hard enough to read on the treated seeds, that even if I buy a hybrid anyways, I usually will not. I would never bother with the Johnny Seed catalog. I only buy Johnny's if I'm going to a store that doesn't sell treated seeds.
Okay.
This is so non-traditional, but for us, it's really the community need is what is the first criterion, first driver. And that will cause us as a group to look at the smaller companies that will have those specialty, those types of specialty crops. I don't want to use that term. And then after that is the viability. If I get this at True Love, if I get this at Jama, can we grow it here in Springfield?
Why is everyone so concerned about the exact viability rate of the seeds, when if the seeds, all you need to do to offset bad viability is to put more seeds in the package and without charging more money.
In some cases, that's true. I'll give you one example and then we'll move on, because this is a slightly different topic than what we're trying to explore here, but it is worthwhile. I had a conversation with a grower who's working with the paper pot transplanter. And so for that grower and a particular lettuce variety that was performing poorly for them, which is not uncommon in the pelleted lettuce world. How many conversations have we had about that? Where, for me, if my pelleted lettuce is germinating at 60–70%, I put 2 seeds in a cell. I might even put 3 seeds in a cell, and then I trim them out. And in a 128 plastic cell or a 6-pack or whatever the soil block, you can do that because blank cells don't mean anything. But in a paper pot transplanter, have you seen one of those? Have you seen that tool where it's a chain of paper and they fill up and they grow the seed, they grow the plants in that, and then they pull this metal tool through a bed and it unravels the chain of paper and drops all the seedlings in a perfect line. Well, if you have poor germ and there's blank cells there, then it becomes a plant spacing issue. So that's one reason why for a commercial grower. But I would tend to agree with you that using up the seed, even though it's poor germ, is good. Though, again, if you're seeding corn that has poor germ and then you've got blanks, then then you might have some weed issues or the like. Yeah.
Yes. I think you were talking about something earlier. The time when, and I do that for myself over the last 15 years. I take notes of what grow well and where get the seeds from. A friend of mine gave me some corn seed once, and he said, These are seeds they call African drought corn. And they're grown in Africa. And he gave me some, say, plant them in your garden, Dutch, I want to see how well they're gonna come out. And I plant them a 4x8 bed. They really came out well. They grew up to 14 feet tall. I took pictures and sent to him. He was amazed. But he said those corn can handle more heat and they can grow longer. You can handle the cold much better than your average sweet corn. So my point is sometimes you buy a plant with the seeds and it grow well, then you document it, where you get it from and the type. And so as you go from one year to the other, you keep working with a particular brand of seed that so you got a list of those seeds. So for me over time, I know the type of seeds that will work well for my particular garden, but that because I've been taking notes, you're talking about convention and taking notes, on what goes well.
Yeah,
So piggyback on what he just said, because I'm a new grower. So is it basically trial and error? Because, for me, I'm looking at seed companies and they're saying something on the packet or on the advertisement, but I'm not really sure if that's really true.
yeah, the seed packet language is like its own language, right? It's like you gotta interpret it, you gotta find the code words in there and stuff like that. So I agree, sometimes you're questioning it, and we're having that at Mowing, we've had that conversation all the time about like tweaking that language and being, well, what are we saying here? What are we trying to say here? But I don't know. Well, I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I want to answer your question. I don't know that trial and error would be my first step, would be my first decision maker for a new grower. I would probably use area expert information, whether that's other growers in your area, people who've been doing backyard growing or commercial growing in your area, and just asking them point blank what varieties of this, that, or the other thing they use. Master gardener programs, in some counties can be very, very effective. Extension programs, the NOFA programs can be very effective. That would be my baseline. And then from there, as far as individualizing my variety choices, that's where I would do trial and error. And I'm in the same place you're at. I'm not a new grower, but I'm in the exact place you're at. I grew I grew the catalog this year, and it was a freaking disaster. And I will never do that again. And I thought I had grand plans that I was going to grow the whole High Mowing catalog out, and some of Johnny's, and some of Fedco, and
Oh my God.
it was horrible. I had 2 acres, and it's horrible. And so I said the other day, sitting on the couch, I was really upset and really down, and it was despair. And I said, I'm just gonna grow what I know works, and one more next year. I'm gonna grow what I know works, and one more next year, and then a new one more the year, instead of 2 of everything.
That-
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's more or less been my seed philosophy. It's like, do what you know works, like customers need X, Y, and Z, like do that. If I, buy these seeds, I'm gonna pay 3 times as much and I can't afford that. So
Yeah.
I buy almost exclusively from Johnny's. And but I'm getting like the best things that I can get from Johnny's, and then like 1 or 2 more. And
Yeah.
That's more or less what it's been.
Yeah.
I've grown for growers who want like this pepper, this squash, whatever, and we pay, dollars per seed or whatever, and like that's what they want.
Yeah.
That's never how my effort.
Yeah. Well, you hit the nail on the head, but like, so for carrots, what a disaster that was, because I had a nice seeder, but I couldn't use the seeder because I was only seeding this small amount of every carrot, so I ended up having to hand plant all my carrots, even though I planted like 400 feet of carrots, which if I just planted one variety, I could have used my seeder, but I didn't really think that through very well. Okay, but we wandered, and I'm gonna push us back on this topic because it's the question I want to get answered, and we only have 5 more minutes. What's your philosophy on conventional versus organic seed in an organic garden or farm setting? What's your philosophy? And if your philosophy is whatever, or some of the things that already been mentioned, that's fine, but I really do want to hear it.
That is kind of my philosophy. It's like, definitely, I always prefer certified organic, and I've only once grown in an actual certified operation, but it's always been like organic practices. But yeah, like, you know, if I can do organic, I do, but if I can't get it from the company, I'm gonna pay 3 times as much in shipping to get it from somewhere else. Or if, you know, the variety that I want is not available organically or sold out or whatever, like I'll definitely, yeah, I'll go with what works. I guess part of that philosophy is like, if I spend a lot more on seeds, that's cutting into my budget elsewhere. Like I want to maintain the crops better, I want to pay staff better, et cetera. You know, so there's no like hard and fast rule, but definitely like cheap organic, unfortunately, you know, like I'll buy from Johnny's, I'll buy the best possible, and then beyond that, so yeah, like I'm never gonna buy the like $200, you know, tomato seed packet.
I buy my good seed in a larger amount than what I need. And then I have it for a couple of years. And then, like I said, I go to the seed racks at the local farm store and buy it at half or a quarter, or 5 for $1, and fill in the other stuff. And usually I don't even use all that up, I throw that away. So basically, I kind of fill in the conventional into what I don't find for my best organic, which is 90% of what I do.
Is anybody 100% pure? Like I only grow organic seeds at.
I grow both.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is something that a question is actually a part of my philosophy, and it's the question is why I does the organic standard not require the seeds to be organic, and it requires the seeds not to be chemically treated genetically engineered, which makes perfect sense, and it doesn't require the seeds to be organic. I have speculated and tried to explain that to myself, but maybe somebody here knows the answer to that.
So to clarify for people in the room, what I heard you say and it is true is that to be certified organic, you are not allowed to use treated with fungicide
Or any kind of pesticide.
any kind of prohibited material. It's prohibited to use in an organic crop. You are not allowed to use it in a seed treatment form. And that is a violation, and you can lose you've broken the rules, and there are some, you have to work on a plan to reconcile that. I did it once. Well, I didn't, but I ran a student farm and somebody planted a bunch of Olympia cucumber seeds that were treated, and they just never even thought about the fact that they were neon blue. And we lost that whole row. I had to put it down to sod for 3 years in order to get it back into certification. So that's one of the things you said. But then your question is, why does the certification agencies allow the use of conventional seeds? Do people have answers to that?
Untreated seed.
Untreated, conventionally produced seed. And I will say that each agency has different thresholds and different rules about that. Some of them want to show they want you to show that you've tried to find the organic one. Some of them you're pursuing a percentage of organic seeds or money that you've spent on organic seeds. But does anybody? I mean, none of us really know the answer. But so what are
Back to the beginning of when the organic happened, was basically there wasn't people who were producing organic seeds. And so it really gave opportunity for people to get into organics, just like the argument we had about manure. I mean, basically, we had a long conversation about conventional manures. Could conventional manure be used on organic production?
Yeah.
And we decided after wrestling with each other for a while, that it, manure, for the fact that it's a natural kind of product, that is a fertility product, then let's say that we can use, conventional manures. And it became that same argument for conventionally produced seeds, because we couldn't get organic seed.
Right.
So that's and it's still with us. Now, whether we want to tackle that within, the. organic
Cold turkey, do
standards-
you wanna go cold turkey, or do you wanna go, yeah, therein lies the question.
My understanding is it's 50% like hardship, like you're talking about, like it's just not possible or practical to do.
Right.
50% that like, even if you're spraying Roundup on a crop, then it's whatever, but. There's so little of that, especially by the time you get to the next season you plant. That it's not like a substantial contribution, or it's a negligible contribution, or similar to the.
And it was the same with livestock on grain. We had, if you could not get organically produced grain. And you tried your best and you did everything you could, and you still needed to feed your cattle, chickens, whatever, then there would be an acceptable conventional.
Alternative.
Yeah,
That's been really, so, yeah, I don't wanna go down, I was gonna give another example, but rather than do that, I think that's the answer to the question. The answer to the question is that the organic seed industry has lagged behind. Not for lack of trying, but has lagged behind the demand and the need for growers to have the best varieties and the best tools and supplies to be competitive in the marketplace.
and the best production methods.
Right,
I mean, that was also another issue.
so, and I know Tom, when I first met Tom years ago, well before I ever thought about working for High Mowing, he was talking about farmers having to use a blunt tool by using some of the varieties that were certified organic at the time, because they just simply weren't as competitive. And what he was striving towards was to sharpen that tool. And damn if he hasn't done that, or we haven't done that as an industry, not just by mowing. But the question, like in some places, that tool I think is still considered to be too dull for competitiveness. I think that's a good place to stop. I learned a lot today about how to do this.
I really want organic herbs, that's really important.
Flowers, herbs.
Organic herbs is really important. And when I buy herbs, I actually, now I actually should get them organic. And I grow my herbs at just roots, because there's soils organic there, and it's not organic where I live.
Yeah,
If
because you're saving seed.
no,
Oh.
because I'm growing herbs,
Oh, I see.
herbs are more important to get organic than the other things.
So you're growing those only in certified organic soil or organic soil.
Yeah, they're not certified, but they're,
Yeah.
but they don't use any pesticide on the site, they don't use pesticides on the site. Right, they have wooded areas around them to pesticides and drift, and the bed I'm growing herbs, and I've even taken the extra mile to fertilize with nitrogen fixing beans instead of compost.
Nice.
And I'm not sure how long it's gonna last.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Good job.
A quick reminder that the office is still open, and we do have a fair space in the top floor of the student center. Yeah, so there'll be some activities, and music, and all sorts of fun stuff till 5 o'clock.
Okay.
And dinner after.
Thanks, David.
I didn't see any.
Let's, I'd love to get some feedback.
Sure.
Right. As I prepared it, bounce around the Midwest and the Northeast this winter and try to